Well, what got me interested originally in undergrad, I thought I was going to become a lawyer. Because either way, I wanted to kind of help make a difference in the world around me. And then some very smart professors of mine kind of made a budgetary argument that a master's in public policy was 1 year less of graduate school to pay for. It was a very compelling argument for me. Um, and I started looking into lobbying, which it kind of has this kind of scary reputation, right? Like these dark shadowy forces that shape the democracy. But really, any group under the sun, it has a lobbyist group, and it's about being able to speak out and being able to make your voice heard amongst a very loud din in the background. I found in particular as I started working as a legislative assistant that I was good at making people feel comfortable with this. And that was honestly one of the most fun parts, right? You had to see somebody come back from an advocacy day. It's their first time ever having met a member of Congress. And for once, they actually feel that it's not such a hopeless situation out here in Washington, D.C. And that's kind of what prompted me to continue at Anchor, starting to work on a grassroots program and now coming to APA to do the same.
Direct lineage of family. Every man has either been a lawyer or a bartender up until me. But I can say that at least now I work on laws. And, getting out of undergrad, it was a scary time of being trying to figure out what I want to do with life. And I had a communications and graphic design background, but that wasn't really where I wanted to go. And really, there was a congressional race right where I grew up, and I'd always, been passionate about politics. And that congressional race came down to 121 votes, and the candidate who I wanted to win didn't. And it just made me think that had there been maybe 10 to 15 other people like me who were passionate about it but didn't get involved in that race, that could have been an entirely different outcome, especially when several votes in Congress came down to 1 or 2 votes, and that member was not voting the way that I wanted. So that sort of the wheels for me. So I started getting involved in some congressional campaigns, and one of the guys who I worked for won, and that was Ed Perlmutter from Colorado, and he took me out to DC with.
Sure. So I've had a bit of a winding road because, I think in DC you can have the option either you develop a skill set and it gets applied from issue to issue, or you become like really knowledgeable about a particular set of issues and you dive deep and you kind of just continue the road on that way. I'm more of the jack of all trades who takes the skills with her. So I started working on immigration. That was kind of my first meaty job at the NATO Educational Fund. It was immigration reform and voting rights, those big bills in 2012 that unfortunately are still in the works right now. And then after that, disability issues. And that was really helping people with disabilities who want to live in the community find ways to get the Medicaid program to support them in doing so. And with APA, it's a much broader range, and I'm really here to facilitate the lobbyist work. In helping connect people to their lawmakers and whatnot. So
sort of a similar arc. When I was on the Hill, I worked for a freshman member. So it was really all hands on deck. So I had such a wide portfolio of issues because there's really a lot of times, I would say around 5 legislative staffers, if less than that, on a Hill when you have to cover every issue that comes your way. You don't get to vote on all of the issues you're comfortable with for these members of Congress. So that exposed me, which was good training for APA, where I have done so many different portfolios for the association. I was mainly associated with the public interest directorate, so a lot of the social issues related to APA, and headed up the disability portfolio for a long time, as well as immigration at one point, and led over to my current portfolios that I've been doing a lot of work on, which is gun violence prevention, policing, criminal justice work. And so that's been the breadth of what I've worked on lately. I think the biggest takeaway message is that it's okay to feel unsure of yourself. And going into this, it's not what you have trained to do. But you'll often find, and this is what I hear so often from psychologists, that they say, once they actually do the Hill visits and they have met with legislators and whatnot, they're like, wow, I was like, the skill set that I acquired as a psychologist translated so well and so easily once I got in and got over my nerves. to get started. So just know early on, it is kind of a nerve-wracking experience, but that's where ABA and other organizations are there to help you. We have such a variety of trainings throughout the years, stuff that's online as well. And that's something that we would really love for those who are watching this call to engage with in the future, to start to join with our office when we do Giant Hill Days, where we take APA members up to Capitol Hill, or virtually now with the pandemic, and January 6th plays a role in a little bit of that as well, not fully open. But and just know that it's a learning process. When I do advocacy trainings, I normally have to start it off by saying, it's important to know your audience, but I'm never going to know my exact audience going into this training, because some people are going to say, Ben, I learned a lot of this government stuff when I was in grade school. And other people are going to be like, Ben, I learned this when I was in grade school. How do you expect me to remember every single aspect of how our government works? And so everybody starts off in a different place, but you get there quickly. And it's very invigorating once you do start making headway with your visits and your advocacy. So,
nice.
I'll piggyback a bit off Ben, because it is a very valid point that while you might not feel that you've been trained specifically for advocacy, the skill set that you have from being a psychologist is exactly what you need, right? I was actually talking about this with one of our members who was explaining when he testifies. He already knows how to speak to people in a calming manner. He knows how to sort through complex information, to present it in a simpler way that somebody can grasp who has not been versed in the topics very easily. He knows how to kind of wait people out and hear them out so he can get to what's really working at them. Well, that skill set is very similar when you're talking to a member of Congress, when you're talking to a state legislator, or to your local councilman. I think in terms of like the nitty-gritty of like when you first start engaging, there's a few things that nobody really fully expects. Some of it is just the speed at which, well, rather the hurry up and wait pattern of it, right? So you'll have like 25 minutes to be able to book this meeting as fast as possible when you first hear from the scheduler, or they move on and they give your slot to somebody else. And then that meeting will be a month later. Or you'll go in and you might only have 15 minutes, and really that's probably the most realistic expectation when you're starting in the engagement. You might not have more than 15 minutes to make your case. But after that, you might also never get rid of that staffer, because they will keep coming back if they start building trust with you for more answers, and then you'll have more time, and the relationship will build very organically and slowly. So it's hard to map out and give a process for something that's going to vary by the personalities of people involved. But it's the one true fast rule that there can be is just to be very honest about everything. So if you don't know an answer, that's perfectly okay. They don't expect you to know any specifics of, if you're coming in saying, I care about this issue, they're not going to expect you to know exactly the 5 bills that are the most relevant to that issue. Just say, I don't know, this is why I think it matters. I can connect you to somebody who can give you those answers. The more you're truthful, and the more that you follow up with accurate information because you've had to do your research, or because you've connected them with the right people, the more that trust will build, and the more you'll feel more comfortable, and the more you'll have opportunities. It's a muscle, and the more you exercise it without injuring it at the start, the stronger it'll get, and the more comfortable you'll be.